Now, we're going to hear from Michael Lorrigan. He's the Managing Director of Spearhead Training. He's been speaking to Brandy Scott about the health of the regional training market at the moment, as well as a new business model that he believes companies should be adopting to move forward. He began by telling Brandy how Q1 had been for his company.
Q1's been pretty good for us. Last year was very good. We saw the recovery in the three areas that really affected by a recession at the beginning, which is recruitment, advertising and training. They've definitely picked up in 2010. We've seen it continue in 2011, but there definitely is an impact from what is going on in the region. The political problems in the region are affecting some of our business.
Can you put numbers on what you've seen in Q1 when you say there has been a pickup?
Well, for us it's in the between 10 and 20%. That's a figure that we're looking at. First quarter is always relatively quiet compared to the rest of the year. Second quarter is always very strong, so we're hoping that will continue.
That surprises me, Q2 being strong, particularly going into the summer. Why is that?
Well, it's always been traditionally for us. April, May, June have always been probably the best quarter for us, and then the last quarter of the year is always the best traditionally. Then you do go into the summer, July, August, September, Ramadan, and you do get the dip.
So tell me about 2010 as a whole. Did you see business start to come back? Did you see demand for training start to come back last year?
Yeah, we had a very good 2010 compared to obviously 2009 was probably the worst for recruitment, advertising and training, the three areas that companies cut straight away. But we actually in 2010 we managed to get, I think it was over 300 new clients, which was remarkable, which meant that some companies still hadn't started their training programs. They were still sitting back and watching and waiting. But that was our existing customers. New customers, we went out and found, say, over 300, which was good for us.
Did you see a difference in who was looking for training or the kind of training they were looking for?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies sat back, they laid off staff, and then they had to decide, right, who are we going to invest in when it comes to training? We've seen a lot of training in management and leadership, which means probably it was they felt that it was lacking sometimes in the glory years. That's 2008. It wasn't as important. Certainly sales. We've had a lot of sales training recently where people have now either recruited new salespeople because they can see the business coming and therefore they need them to have those skills. So those are the two areas that we've seen big rises in recently.
What about the duration of courses? Are people changing how long they're able to let staff go off on training for?
Well, I haven't seen anything that would indicate that. I mean, we basically do what I would call it's an immediate solution. So if you've got a problem with your sales, we train up people very quickly, get them their product knowledge, the communication skills, planning and organising, so a company can see an immediate impact. So you don't want a long, drawn-out 6-month course over modules for that. You need something that's short, sharp, effective, 3 days, 4 days, and then bang, your people can start back again.
Are people willing to pay as much as they were pre-recession for training? We saw a lot of companies drop rates, for example. It can be very hard for an industry to pick those rates back up.
Well, funny, we haven't actually found that's the case. We haven't dropped our prices. We've given more value. We think as I always say, we should be a value creation organisation. So we actually, rather than say we're going to discount the price, we'll actually add value to what we can do, and it may be maybe some more consultancy, some more analysis of their problems, trying to help them, sticking closer to their business. But it's one of the things I do not encourage anybody to do, is to discount your prices, because the effect it has on your gross profit margins. Some people actually don't realise how bad it is. 1% drop on your prices can affect your gross profit margin, your net profit margin, incredibly badly.
Are there a lot more players in your market now? I mean, I know a lot of people who were laid off during the recession have rebranded themselves as consultants. Some have gone into the training fields. There seems to be a lot more experts for hire at the moment. What does that do to the market?
Interesting comments about consultants and experts. I've never describe us as experts. I hate that word. Consultants, yes, we've seen some very dubious consultants around at the moment. I describe a consultant as somebody who will say, give me your watch and I'll tell you a time. We've found some incredible examples of competencies of companies exactly the same, put together by the same consultant and charging a fortune. So yes, there are a lot of those people around. We just continue to do what we do right, and they eventually fall by the wayside. But yeah, as regards training companies, somebody once told me there were 1,600 in the UAE. That was before the recession. So I don't know what it is now. I have no idea.
How do you spot a good training company? For a firm who wants to hire someone to carry out training, what are the signs they should look for and the red flags that should tell them that they might be best looking elsewhere?
Well, actually, Google us first. No, I think the most important thing is, how do you get a return on investment for your training? That's the most important thing. And there's a thing called, I call the willing and skilling table that we've developed, which basically says we take 4 quadrants of people in your organisation who can do and will do, and those who can't do and won't do. And the problem I see is the people you should be investing your training in is, the most important ones are the ones who can't do at the moment but are willing to do it. So you've recruited the right people and they need to be developed. They're the people you really need to spend most of your money on. And of course you've got your stars, who I would say are the can do and want to do. These are the people that will grow your company, because these are the people who are capable that you can delegate to. So they would need some training. But the bulk of your training should go to those who are being developed. But if you've got people who can't do and won't do, they shouldn't be in the company anyway. And then if you've got people who can do but won't do, you have to find out, well, would training benefit them, or should they leave the company, or is there a motivation issue? So it's take those 4 quadrants and ask people, where are you going to invest your training budget? Where's it going to be most effective? And I don't think people are doing that.
What about actually identifying the right training company, though? I mean, are there questions you should ask when you're interviewing a training company, specifics or qualifications or references you should ask for?
Well, I think ideally, if somebody's got a track record, that's obviously good. A referral to me is always the best way to get something. A training company, ask around and say to people, give me the names of good training companies. And there are some, we have some very good competitors. They're professional, they're ethical, but there are a lot of cowboys around, and you don't want to be getting your training done by a cowboy. The easiest thing to do, I think, is get a reference. Ask around, go to your embassies, ask people, do they know registered companies, who they know is good. If somebody has arrived in the market from South Africa, they don't know any training companies, well, go to your embassy and say, well, who do you know? Rather than just go to your yellow pages or wherever you source and think, well, this must be a good company.
Now, I know you've been speaking to your clients about adopting a transformational business model. What's that all about?
Well, that's an interesting question. What happened was we looked at the recession. We looked at the fact that management actually has failed across the world. Management and leadership has failed. Why? It's failed in the banks. It's failed actually in the auditors who are auditing the banks. It's failed in the people who are checking on the auditors. It's failed in government. It's failed in financial companies around the world. Why did it fail? I think it was purely, come back to Michael Douglas in Wall Street, his expression, greed is good. It was pure greed. So then you start looking at, well, where's the focus of the company? Is the management focusing on just the short-term money, which is what the banks were doing? And we decided from that you have to change your whole thinking and basically say mission, vision, values. I have no idea who created the concept of mission, vision, values. I have looked everywhere to find it on the internet. Somebody somewhere came up with it, and everybody, like sheep, followed it. And then, of course, you get all these people with the mission, vision, values were the ones who actually were corrupt and greedy and created the Great Recession. So it doesn't work. So I think you've got to look at the complete transformation of your business. And at the heart of the business should be the one person who pays everybody's salary, which is the customer. They should be paramount in the company. So what you have to do is all your strategic planning, all your thinking has to be around your customers. How do I find new customers? What are new products I can come out with? How do I retain my customers? That's your strategic planning. A lot of people make strategic planning to be a very complex issue. It's not. If it's all around where's the future of the company, and the future of the company is around its customers, and everything focuses on that, then you create another concept which we call value leadership, which is what are the leadership values that the company should have to make sure that this works. It's things like integrity, customer focus, being proactive. But I think one of the most important ones is actually decent human values, that you don't exploit people in the third world. You don't go out to exploit people like the banks did. They actually pushed it to the limit. They knew what they were doing was morally wrong, but actually it wasn't legally wrong to be lending all this money to people who couldn't pay it back. It was just about short-term bonuses. So I think if you think of longer-term value, where you have chief executives who make a commitment to the organisation. That's another thing that's been lacking. CEOs turn around very quickly in organisations, and especially the bad ones. So I think the long-term commitment makes a huge difference in terms of the values that you're displaying in the marketplace. And obviously environmental sustainability is now an important thing, financial sustainability. And the worst thing about the banks was that George Bush allowed them to cut down on their reserves, and then they lent more money. And so they didn't actually build up any reserves for a rainy day. So when it all went wrong, they just expected the government to bail them out. And they thought that was going to happen. It was just pure speculative greed.
So where does a training company fit into putting some of that right then? I mean, if you've developed this business model, how do you work with companies to put that into place?
Well, we've been presenting it to companies. We've been presenting it to forums and saying, it's another way of thinking. Whether they take it on board is up to them. But John Adair was here a few weeks ago. I don't know whether you interviewed him when he was here talking at the Literary Festival, and he said that organisations fail. He's probably the world expert on leadership, and it was a privilege to sit in the audience and listen to him speak. But he said organisations fail for 3 reasons: complexity, complacency, and arrogance. And I think those 3 are exactly why the organisations failed in the recession. They made things so complex so people couldn't actually see that they were doing things that were immoral. They were very complacent, saying we're going to take the money now, short term, not build up any reserves, and total arrogance. I mean, it was total arrogance. So I think he got it spot on.
Michael Lorrigan, Managing Director of Spearhead Training, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
You're very welcome.